say a lot of these like apps that are out there are not correct, as we're
Mhm.
learning.
Yes.
And like, please, for the love of God, never ever plug your information into Chat GPT for what your birth
Oh,
chart, your astrocartography, literally nothing. Mostly, well, for me, it's because it uses up our clean drinking water, but for everybody else, it's because it's wrong. All the
yeah.
time. It is wrong. It
Yes.
is not giving you the correct information. And that is true both for the apps and for Chat GPT. So like if you absolutely have to go online and do it yourself, AstroDoc.
Welcome to Big Crystal Energy, Season 3, the Veil Season. I'm Ashleigh, and I live at the threshold between medicine and magic, between the visible world and what waits just beyond it, between the person I present and the witch I am. I've learned something. The in-between isn't a problem to solve. It's a place of power. This season, we're exploring the veil, where Victorian women spoke for the dead, where fairies guard the crossroads, where glamour becomes armor, where you stop apologizing for being both things at once. The crystals have always known the way through. Let me show you. Welcome back to Big Crystal Energy. I'm Ashleigh, and full transparency, I am recording this intro after my conversation with Aubrey, just because I wanted to save time when we recorded to just get into the conversation all about astrocartography and the work that Aubrey is doing in the world. But friends, the first half of the conversation was rough, okay? And I just want to preface this. If you hear during our recording lots of voices of crying small children, pounding on doors, or any other kinds of chaos in the background, because it was a little bit wild for the first half of the recording. My husband was supposed to be home to watch the boys, but he got caught up in some other work. And so, to the best of my ability, I tried to keep my children distracted, but that didn't really work out. So, thank you to Sonia, my podcast editor, for doing her best to try to resurrect this episode because it was chaotic. And thank you to Aubrey for being such a kind, understanding, and gracious guest for this mother who was literally sweating so much sweat during all of the interruptions. It was crazy. And I hope it's not fully reflected in this episode, but if you hear it, just know that yes, I am doing my best. I am a mother of 2 small boys, and we do the best we can around here. So, with that being said, we are deep in the season of the veil here on Big Crystal Energy. And this month in October, am I kidding myself? Oh my gosh, you guys, it's because I have a pumpkin head candle burning next to me. It smells like October in this room. We're at the, this weekend is like halfway to Halloween. So I think that's on my mind. But anyway, this month in May, the theme of the podcast is all surrounding travel as a liminal space. And travel as kind of a threshold, as one of those places where the life where the person you are when you leave for a trip or you leave from somewhere is not necessarily the same person when you return, because you travel through that liminality in that space. So most of us think of travel as something we do, as an experience we have, a place we visit, a thing we check off of a list. But what if travel is actually something that happens to us? What if certain places on this earth are cosmically, specifically designed to activate parts of us that simply cannot be reached from home? And I've been sitting with this a bunch because we just came back from this big trip to the Philippines and Japan, specifically the Philippines, which is my husband's homeland. And I feel like I came home truly a changed person. And I didn't have a lot of language for this until I really started going down this rabbit hole of astrocartography. And so astrocartography is what this episode today is really all about. And my guest, Aubrey Houdeshell, she's an astrologer, tarot reader, and Llewellyn author whose work lives exactly at the intersection of the stars and the earth beneath our feet. She is the founder of Graveyard Roses, connecting the world to the otherworldly. She is also the author of Stellar Sex, and she has an upcoming title with Llewellyn that I'm already counting down for, but it won't come out until 2027. It's called The Global Horoscope: How Astrocartography Reveals Where to Live, Work, and Travel. So this will be a little glimpse into what you could probably expect from her upcoming title. Astrocartography, you may have heard the word floating around. Maybe you have not. Maybe you've seen maps covered in colored lines and had no idea what they meant. Maybe you've never heard of this at all. Either way, by the end of this conversation, I promise you are going to want to get your own astrocartography reading. So please enjoy this episode with Aubrey and my screaming children. And yeah, here we go. Hello, Aubrey. Welcome to Big Crystal Energy. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Actually, I'm so excited to be here.
So I really didn't know much about this topic of astrocartography until recently. And then once I discovered it, I went down all these different rabbit holes and I found you and I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is the right person to talk to about all of this. So in this month of May, I'm doing a whole kind of mini series about travel as a liminal space, travel, just like lots of different magical aspects of travel. And so this really seemed like it would fit in well. So just to get started, I want to know how you came to this, how you learned about astrocartography, or did it find you?
I kind of feel like it found me. So I actually have to give all of my credit to my very good friend Laura. I've been doing the professional astrology thing for a little while, and she messaged me and she was like, do you do astrocartography? And I was like, hi, I've never heard of that. I don't know what that is. And so, she was like, oh, supposedly it's like, there's travel or better places for you based on your birth chart. And that's all I needed to hear. So after that, I just started researching and diving into it. I love to travel personally.
Yes.
So it's just sort of like an intersection of both of the things I'm really passionate about. So yeah, that's like kind of how I fell into it.
So I think probably a lot of my listeners are probably new to hearing of this, or maybe they've heard the word, but they don't really know what it is. Could you explain in a simple way what it is?
Sure, I'll give you my spiel I kind of give everybody. So, astrocartography is a form of locational astrology. The term astrocartography and kind of astrocartography as we know it today was popularized by an astrologer named Jim Lewis back in the 70s and 80s. Locational astrology has been practiced for centuries. They found the earliest star maps back from ancient Greece. But Jim Lewis kind of took astrocartography in its form that it was in back then and developed a lot of the techniques and stuff that we utilize today. He actually coined the term astrocartography. It was trademarked for a while and you had to go through his whole thing, but the trademark has lapsed. So now we all use the term without needing to be certified. But essentially what it does is it takes your different planets and placements in your birth chart, translates them into latitude and longitude lines, throws them up on the world map. And the idea is that when we either live in these locations or visit these locations, it activates a different part of our chart and therefore a different part of our lives. It all corresponds to the 4 angles in the birth chart, which is to say the first house, the 4th house, the 7th house, and the 10th house. So though the angles is sort of being believed to be the major points or the skeleton of the birth chart. So not to get into the weeds about it, but wherever you have lines, it's because that planet is on that angle if you would have been born there. Does that make sense?
Yes. It is sort of a complicated
It is.
process to set all of this up. Am I right? I did an astrocartography reading from just entering my information into an app called Astroline. I don't know if that's even a good app or whatever, but I was just traveling and I was kind of interested to see what came up. Have you
Mm.
heard of that website or that app
Not heard
before?
of Astroline, no. That one is new to me. I think, like, the beauty of living in our modern age, we have all kinds of technology available to us. So there's lots of good programs out there that will just populate your map for you. I don't know about Astroline, but there are plenty of good, like, free resources out there. Astro.com has the best, like, free resource
Okay.
that I've found. And, before that, you would have to, like, hand draw people's maps.
I mean, the thing is, it's like I put my information into that app, but then I feel like, okay, but now what? I mean, we need people like I personally would need someone like yourself to really interpret it for me. I'm going to get into this later in the in our conversation, but when I did mine, it was so wild. Some of the things, it was really wild. Some of the places that came up for me, especially one in particular, because it's a place that I've always been drawn to all of my life. And we went there last summer and I had no idea. So it was really cool. So if you're looking at someone's map, what are you really seeing?
Well, you're quite literally seeing a world map, and I like it. It's just a map with a bunch of lines all over. I'm not quite sure how you want me to answer that question.
Well, I mean, are
Uh,
you like what I mean, you mentioned the angles, but what do the lines mean?
yeah, so they all mean various things. We would be here for hours, like
Right.
diving into what they all mean. I like to tell people if you have like a pretty good understanding of what each of the planets kind of like mean, do, represent in your birth chart, then the lines are pretty intuitive from there. That, of course, there's a caveat to all. It's usually a little more complex than that. But,
Sure.
if you're like, oh, I know that the sun represents like my identity and my individuality, all of the sun lines, while they do like, represent kind of different stuff, a theme of all sun lines is that your individuality, your ego, right, your identity are all going to be like major things that come forward underneath those lines.
Interesting. Okay. So if a person was to book a reading, let's say, what are questions that people are usually asking or trying to
Mm.
get understanding around?
So, over time, I have found that that varies just as much as what people are looking for in a birth chart reading.
Sure.
Very common themes that I come across is like people trying to figure out the best place to like move, for
Sure.
example, or they're wanting to know like where's the best place I can go to like have success in a business. A lot of people want to know where they can go to find love, typical.
Okay.
And
Okay.
people also will come with just like a list of places that they're like interested in and want to see what their astrocartography is in those locations. What you said earlier, where you're like, I've always felt drawn to this place. Right. And then I like learned about my astrocartography that was there. And that's like a very common experience for people to have as well.
Well, so for example, I have always, pretty much my entire adult life, I have felt really drawn to Iceland. I'm
Me
not
too.
Icelandic.
I was just going to use that as my own example. I love this. You go.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay, yes. Always drawn to Iceland. Always like wanted to go there. I don't know why. I don't know anyone in Iceland. I don't know that many people that have traveled there, but I've always wanted to go there. And then when I pulled up my reading, it was saying that Egilstadir of Iceland is like, I don't know, I have it written down somewhere, but I was like, "Oh my gosh, we were literally there last June." And it was truly the most amazing
Mhm.
being there. I mean, I felt like I was coming home.
Yep.
I don't know what that was all about, but I loved that trip so much. Like I think about it almost every single day.
That is so funny. Yeah. So I'm curious what line or lines
I
were.
see. I have it written down here somewhere. It says here sun IC and Mars
Yep.
AC. So the
Okay.
identity and self-discovery and soul and
Mhm.
creativity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So the IC is the fourth house, right, in the birth
Okay.
chart. So among other things, the IC relates to the feeling of like home
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes our literal home, right?
Yeah.
So the Sun IC, well, any of the IC lines, like period, are going to be places that naturally feel like home to us. right? Like we feel like, oh, I could see myself living here. I belong here. It's like very easy for us to kind of like buy a home, settle down, find our group of people, if you will. And with the sun, there's also this kind of natural sense of you just kind of being able to like fully be yourself, right? Like you're the most yourself that you could be. And, if you were to move there, it could be a very good place for you to be. It would definitely be like the sun I see would be bringing forward like a lot of things around like your identity, right? Family, ancestors, roots, things like that. Normally I would look at the sun IC line and say like, oh, it's probably a place where you would want to be like almost living like the hermit life. You know what I mean? Like a quiet, withdrawn life. But because you have Mars on the ascendant there, like that would be true.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, I'm interested in your like your connection to Iceland.
Okay, so like same thing, right? I like as soon as I like discovered Iceland, I was like, I'm obsessed. It looks so cool. Like I need to go there, blah, blah, blah. Just, Iceland has all of these really unique geological like wonders, right, happening there. And I was just totally like taken by that. So, Iceland has all these like unique geological wonders, and I was just like, oh my God, and was just like instantly obsessed. So I, like you, I went to Iceland. And I had an excellent time. And then, I started learning about astrocartography and ended up looking up my astrocartography. And it's a Venus line that is there for me, a Venus ascendant line. And so Venus lines in general are going to be these places in the global horoscope that we think are just like stunning. Right? Like chef's kiss, perfect, beautiful. Have you seen this place? And like I'm like you. Like I think about Iceland almost every single day, like ever since I've gone. So, yeah.
I couldn't believe it especially because this like one particular town came up, and I was like, I mean, the country, granted, is not that big.
No.
But still, there's a lot of different towns that it could have honed in on, and like it went to this one particular place that I really particularly loved, so that we really had like a moment there, and I was like, wow, that is so meant to be. So now I'm trying to plot. Now I'm trying to plot when I'm going to get back.
I understand. I'm the same way. Shout out to Iceland. All right.
Yes. Oh gosh. I'm like, what can I do to like incorporate more podcasting stuff into Iceland so I can?
Yeah, such a good idea.
Yeah, totally. So do people ever walk away with, I mean, I'm sure they do, like insights that they never really thought they were going to have, or I don't know. I'm just curious, like what kind of experiences people walk away with.
Yeah, so they definitely do. You know what I mean? Like we're looking at like the whole wide world.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And my sessions are only an hour long, so don't usually look at the entire world. Right. Sure. But, people will be surprised at the type of astrocartography they have in certain locations, or just surprised that they have good astrocartography in a location, period. And it, like, I mean, if I had $1 for every time somebody was like, wow, I never like considered that, but it sounds like I need to at least visit there or something, like it's a very common experience.
Do you ever have experiences where you see something and you feel like that could be hard for someone to hear, or maybe if someone is living in an area that could potentially be working against them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. So, the thing is, like, the beauty of astrocartography is I think it makes astrology really tangible. You know what I mean? I always start my readings with where somebody lives and explain the astrocartography that they have there, because I think that really helps to make astrocartography click, right? Like you tell somebody, oh, you have this line, this line, this line where you live, and they're like, oh my God, it's totally reflective of like my experience that I'm having living here, right? So if I have to tell somebody like, hey, maybe you're not living in a great area, they kind of already know that.
Okay, they're already,
you know what I mean? Just like, yeah.
I mean, so it kind of really tracks. I mean, it's kind of like with our general astrology too, right? So we have all these personality traits about us that just always seem to really, for the most part, they click. And sometimes it's hard for us to understand certain aspects of our birth chart, but then when they play in with other aspects of our birth chart, it kind of all flows together. And I would imagine it's a similar type of situation.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I would definitely say so. Like I said, people are usually fully aware, right, of like the experience that they're having wherever they live. And so if anything, I think it feels validating to them.
And I think this person, Jim Lewis, that kind of coined the astrocartography, he seems like he was probably a very interesting individual. I read somewhere that he said astrocartography isn't to find where you'll get rich and famous, it's to help you become a whole person. And I thought that was
I love
kind of
that.
a really beautiful way to think about it, because I mean, I think a lot of people, they're like, oh, well, where am I going to go where I could, work and make a ton of money and things like that. But really, it's like there's so much more to life than just like having money. It's really about
Yeah,
becoming this whole person and like living somewhere or being somewhere or traveling somewhere that you truly feel connected with.
yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. So, okay. So we already talked about the Iceland thing. The other thing that came up in my birth chart, I mean, not birth chart, my astrocartography, was the Philippines. It actually came up a bunch of times. And the Philippines is my husband's homeland. And we just came back from like a whole month in the Philippines.
Oh my
And
God.
so I was like, wow, that's crazy. Because I mean, probably
Mhm.
if I wasn't married to someone that was Filipino, I don't know that going to the Philippines would ever necessarily be on my radar.
Yep.
But it says that the Philippines sits on my moon, MC, and Venus DC lines.
Okay, so this is so funny. I was going to ask if you have a Venus sign that runs through the Philippines, because a very common experience that we all have is we end up in relationships with people who like hail from one of our Venus signs.
That is so crazy.
Yeah, and like the Venus descendant line is like the place in the global horoscope to meet like your life partner.
It's so interesting too, because I'm a girl, I grew up in a small town in Nebraska. There were like no Asian people there. Everybody was like me. And I moved to California to go to school and stuff. And I met my husband when we were in school. And when I met him, I just met him as a person. I never really thought about him initially as like a partner or anything. But,
Yeah.
you know, he's ended up being the perfect person for me. And now we're just trying to incorporate, since we have two little kids, we're really just trying to incorporate their culture into our family as well. Because growing up in the Midwest, I didn't really have like a cultural experience. I don't know how else to explain that.
I understand.
Where do you live?
That is,
Where do you live?
I'm in Denver.
Okay,
So
so
I'm
you're
in
right
Denver.
there, right next door to me.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, not far. Definitely. Are you still in Nebraska?
No, I live in California now.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Oh
Okay.
no, I was out.
Um,
I was out. First
I
chance I
understand.
get.
I understand. I've been to Nebraska a couple times. I understand.
Okay.
No, that's so funny. But okay, like one of my boyfriends that I had in my life came from one of my Venus lines in Iowa. So I got it.
Yeah. It's so funny. Let's see here. When I look at my black, there's like just so many interesting things that popped up that I can't even remember all of them, but I was just like, wow, like certain where was it? I wrote it down somewhere. Like there were certain places that seemed to come up over and over again, which I thought was kind of interesting. I was also reading about something called remote activation. Are you familiar
Ooh.
with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is one of my favorite tricks in
Okay.
astrocartography.
Okay.
Obviously, travel is expensive and isn't
Yes.
something that is accessible to everybody, but it doesn't matter. You can still interact with literally any of your lines anywhere in the
Okay.
world, just like being at home. Okay. So I think one of the easiest ways to kind of activate the energy of any given line is simply to consume media from that place.
Okay.
So, for example, if you and I decided we wanted to watch a bunch of like Icelandic movies and TV shows, right? You're activating your Mars and Sun line. I'm
Mhm.
activating my Venus line, among other things. But, that's like the easiest way to do
Mhm.
it. Okay. You can also like make the background on your phone, a picture from somewhere, with a line.
Mhm.
Books that were written by people, from those places, like anything like that is going to be the easiest way to kind of like bring that energy into your life. Okay. The other thing is my favorite trick I love to give everybody is if you are single, right, and looking to meet somebody, you get on the app, you change your location to wherever one of your Venus lines is, and you start swiping.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Obviously, that's not relevant for you because you're married, but like, I'm sure
gosh,
plenty
no.
of single people
No, no,
listening.
no.
Yeah, but I've given that trick to plenty of my clients. And like one of my clients I first gave that trick to, she was like, as soon as we're done, I'm changing my location on my app and I'm gonna start swiping. And like 4 days later, she messaged me and she's like, I'm talking to somebody. Like, and I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna see him. And now they're like together. So it happens. Okay.
I like
And
that,
then the
though.
other thing is, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I like that, though, because, I mean, I think sometimes it could feel like, "Okay, well, I've been given this location, but how am I just gonna go there? I mean, am I just gonna drop myself there and just start wandering around and looking for somebody?" But I know dating is different now.
It is. Yeah, it is. And so, obviously you might end up having to do the long distance thing with somebody for a while, but like it works. Really works.
Yes.
And then, the other thing, like a lot of myself and my fellow astrocartographer friends, we kind of have this idea of like meditating on a place, meditating on a line, and like literally visualizing yourself plucking that line like a guitar string, right? And activating the energy that way. So there's definitely a lot of different ways, obviously, that you can interact and have the remote activation happen. So yeah, you can travel the world just being at home.
I mean, I love that because I was thinking, like, before we ever even go somewhere, I love to kind of already start immersing myself in the energy of a place, and I'll put on videos on my TV in the living room from YouTube, and I'll start, maybe playing music in my house that's more from that area, or just lots of different things. I mean, you could experiment with the cooking food
Mhm.
or whatever. There's so many cool things that you can do because it's true. A lot of people traveling, especially to some of these big places, is just with the way the world is today, it's extremely expensive and not always feasible. I feel very fortunate in my life that we are at a stage of life where we can afford to do all these things. However, it is often very challenging because we have little kids, and that is always making travel very interesting. But we forge ahead
Now,
and
of
do it
course,
anyway.
those are all great examples too, right? Like cooking the food from a region, learning the language
Mhm.
from wherever. Like those are all great things. The other way you can do it is like with your social media. So like with your podcast, for example, if you were like, wow, I really want to start reaching like a crazy wide audience, there are lines that you could activate,
Mhm.
right? That would point to being like highly visible, right? To receiving like a boost around your career, however you want to think about it. And if you're uploading somewhere, you can simply change your location, right? Like to that
Yeah.
area. And that would
Interesting.
activate that line as well.
Yes, I would love to get more Icelandic. So there's other places in the world I would
Okay,
like.
so like maybe you just experiment and like change your location
That's
to
so
to
true.
Iceland
I
or
mean,
wherever. Yeah.
it was really interesting too because when we were last year when we were there, I was like, well, with podcasting you can see where people in the world are listening. And I didn't have anyone listen from Iceland yet. But then once I was there, and I was uploading stuff from my social media and all this stuff, then I started getting Icelandic listeners. So that was really fun to see that. But it was probably
Mhm.
mostly just because I don't even know I don't know, because I wasn't posting episodes about Iceland, so I don't
So you were
know.
there.
But I was there. The vibe was vibing, and I was loving every I was loving every moment of it.
Okay,
So,
well,
one of
just
the things I was
maybe
thinking
it's
about. What? I'm sorry,
I
it
was
kind
just
of.
saying maybe it's worth it, right? To like give it a shot.
Oh, totally, totally, totally. So one of the things I was thinking about is that today we are recording this episode right after this like Scorpio full moon and Beltane if you celebrate. And it's just kind of like a really charged time. Does that like ever change how you think about location work, or does that kind of play into it at all, or play into a reading, or?
So for me, I think it's really more based on like your personal transits, right? So like if you're going through your Jupiter return, please go visit a Jupiter line. You know what I mean? Or if you're going through a difficult Saturn transit, right? Like maybe
Mhm.
going to your Saturn line would like help you to understand what that's about and have an easier time with it and all that stuff. So yeah, for me, it's more based on like your own personal transits that are happening in your chart versus like, oh, collectively we're all experiencing a Scorpio full moon. Do you know
Got
what I
it.
mean?
Yes. So if you were going to if you were going to if you were going through one of these different transits and you would go to one of these areas, would you be just taking note of how you were feeling in that space, or what would you expect to happen potentially if you traveled to one of these locations?
I would expect there to be a lot of like clarity and understanding that kind of comes your way being underneath whatever line for whatever transit, right? Like if it feels confusing and hard and whatever, and then you go to the line and then you're like, oh, like this is what this is about. This is what I'm supposed
Sure.
to be doing.
That
Things
makes
like
sense.
that.
Yeah. So I was also thinking, I was doing some research about Jim Lewis, and it was saying here that he was struck by a car in Sydney, Australia, which was on his Mars ascending line. However, he died years later of a brain tumor. But I mean, I think that's kind
Mhm.
of interesting because the Mars ascending is what it has something to do with danger or like injury or something.
That is one
Okay.
signification of Mars lines, right? So Mars being the planet of like conflict and violence and accidents, right? They can be hostile environments to kind of be in. I think it depends. But so this is where astrocartography gets a little complex, right? It's like if I'm looking at somebody's Mars line, I'm also going to be looking at like what sign is your Mars in, right? Do you
Okay.
have a day chart? Do you have a night chart? Like blah, 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 blah. Okay. So yes, people absolutely can and do experience like car accidents, robberies, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Underneath Mars lines are injury, anything like that. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to,
Okay.
right? Like you were just underneath your Mars ascendant line in Iceland. I hope you didn't get in a car accident or get robbed.
No, none of that.
Right. Right. So like, and I live underneath my Mars ascendant line and
Okay.
have lived underneath my Mars ascendant line my entire life. Right. And like, I, it's not to say I've never experienced anything. Okay. But
Wow.
like,
You can go your whole life
I
when you
would
can't
not,
avoid.
I would not classify my experience living underneath my Mars ascendant line as being like accidents, injuries, violence, whatever. Right. The other like Mars also points to like our energy, right? Our vitality, our drive, our passion, it's sex, like it's all these other kinds of things, right? So like if you told me you had a sexy time with your husband in Iceland underneath your Mars ascendant line, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And like, or if you all of a sudden felt like alive, I mean,
Yeah.
being underneath both the sun and Mars, which can point to our vitality, right? And like you have this like surge of physical energy available to you, that would also make sense to me, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So let's say someone wants to pull up, like, get, I don't know, if you said the astro.com,
mhm,
they wanted
mhm.
to, I mean, if someone wanted to pull up their map today and just get a glimpse of it, you would suggest maybe if they didn't have access to someone that could do a reading for them,
Yeah.
you would suggest maybe using that app.
Oh yeah. Well, so it's not an
Okay.
app, it's just a website,
Oh, it's a
right?
website. Sorry. Yeah.
So you can get on Google or whatever your favorite browser is or search engine is. And if you literally type like astrocartography into the search bar, it's like the first or second result that comes up. The other one is AstroSeek, but I definitely recommend astro.com over AstroSeek. AstroSeek is wonderful for a lot of things, but I don't think astrocartography is one of them. So the beauty of astro.com is you will plug in all your info just like you would to pull up your birth chart. It will populate your map for you, and it's a fully scalable map. So you can like zoom in as far as you want, zoom out as far as you want. and you can click literally any city, any whatever, and any of the lines that are there on like the right hand side of the screen, it will pull up a list of all of your lines that are there, and it will give you a little description also of what those lines mean. Obviously it's not as detailed as like getting a full on reading,
Sure.
but it's a free resource, right? That people can use, and like you can go there as many times as you want and play around as much as you want. And it really offers like a lot more information. And I also think like has a very usable, interface. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, whatever, I don't even know how I ended up on that. Astro. I don't even know. I now I wanna go to astro.com and see if it was the same. I don't know. But I love that accessibility, but then I also love the idea of then reaching out to someone like yourself to try to do more of a deep dive on it, because you can probably explain things in a lot better way than just the little description from the website can. Where would someone start? Like, if they were gonna pull up their thing, would they just start with whatever questions that they might have regarding whatever it was that they were interested in, or do you recommend a starting point for someone?
Again, I think I would recommend like where are you living? Right. And they also like at the top of the map, there's like these two little boxes you can check that says like harmonious aspects and disharmonious aspects. I would recommend only toggling on one at a time, because if you put
Okay.
both on, the bandwidth of the website is like, no, thank you. But you will see when you do that, like your whole map explodes in colors, because we have other lines besides just like the main lines that a lot of the programs show. And I say that because if you like zoom in on where you live, you might be like, oh, I don't have any lines here. But then if you toggle on the aspect lines, like, yeah, you probably do. Right. So, and it also does parents, which is the latitude lines. So it's like impossible to be almost anywhere in the world and not have some kind of influence going on. There are a few dead zones for everybody, I'm sure, but like there's usually something going on, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, I would recommend starting with where you live, seeing what it has to say, because again, I think that would just like make it click like, oh, okay, I'm starting to understand astrocartography right away because this is reflective of the experience I'm having. And then from there, I mean, like the world is literally and figuratively your oyster. People usually have certain places they're curious about. I think if you're looking for something in particular, like, oh, I want to know the best place to meet a partner, you have to kind of like know what line you're looking for. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah. I was watching something somewhere, and it was like a woman and her husband, they both had readings, and then they were trying to figure out based on both of their readings, like the best place for them to move. And I know that I just remember hearing something how there was a bit of a challenge because they seemed kind of different, but I think they eventually settled on something, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." I mean, I guess if you have the luxury of potentially moving somewhere that is, according to your chart, seems like a good fit, that could be amazing. I mean, it's for me, it would be a little bit challenging just because obviously I have a lot of chaos.
But I mean, yeah, like I get people who like I get couples that come to me all the time,
Sure.
right? Asking that like exact question, like where's a good place for like both of us to be? There are a lot of places that probably don't match up, but there's always places that do too.
Mm. So what are other places that where are some places that you are particularly drawn to, other than Iceland, of course?
My
And did
favorite
we
place in
match
the whole
up?
wide world.
That's a good
That's a loaded question because, like I said, I love to travel. And I think as an astrocartographer at this point, I'm like, there's no line that I like wouldn't go to. Do you know what
Sure.
I mean? But like another place that I really love is Southeast Florida. My dad
Okay.
lived there. Okay, so funny. My dad lived there for like a significant period of time in my life, and so like I have gone to that area of Florida like an obscene amount of times. I still do, even though he doesn't live there anymore. Like I still have family there, so I go to Southeast Florida at least once a
Southeast
year.
Florida, like, what kind of like, that would be,
Like Miami, Fort
yeah.
Lauderdale, Palm Beach, yeah.
Cool.
So, Miami in particular is, like, one of my favorite places I've ever been in the whole wide world. And I have like insanely good
Oh,
astrocartography in
cool.
Miami. Like once I found that out, I was like, oh, it makes perfect sense. And actually I was trading readings with one of my fellow astrocartographer friends, and I had her give me an astrocartography reading just like to see her own interpretation, right?
Yes.
And she does a few different things with her practice that I was not familiar with at the time, but I am now, obviously. And when we were looking at Miami, there was like even more going on there for me than I even initially knew. And she literally was like, I wouldn't be surprised if you like lived there one day. And I always joke with people, like somebody could come to me at literally any moment and be like, we're going to Miami now. Like, you're going to live in Miami now. And I'd be like, great. Like, let me pack a bag. I don't even need to take all this stuff with me. Like, let's just go.
What is it about Miami that, I mean, I've only been there one time, so I don't really know. I mean, I've only been there one time a very long time ago. What is it about Miami that you love so much?
Honestly, I love everything about Miami. Like, it's one
I
of those
feel
places
that
where
way
I'm like,
about
the food,
Columbia
the
too.
culture, the language, like the natural environment is very beautiful. I love the architecture of the city. Like I love all the cultures. Like just, oh my God, everything is just like perfect for me whenever I go there. I'm just like, everything is great. I feel amazing. Everything's amazing. But it's a Venus line for me. It's a North Node line for me. It's also like the midpoint between my Sun and Venus there, which again, we're getting into the weeds here, okay? But like there's a lot of good things. I have a Mercury line there too. So like just every time I go, I'm just like, this is great.
So what's the Mercury line stand for?
So Mercury as the planet of communication, right? And also the planet of like learning, transportation, commerce, like whatever. Whenever we go to a Mercury line, our mind is activated, right? So it's usually a place that we find to be very like inspiring and
Mhm.
stimulating. Certainly we become chatty Cathy's underneath our Mercury lines because that's what Mercury like rules over. So we're very social underneath those
Mhm.
lines and wanting to really connect, right, with other people around us and have that kind of like, meeting of the minds and the exchange of conversation. It's also a place where like our logic comes forward, right? Our emotions can tend to kind of take a back seat underneath Mercury. And we also usually have like a very busy, kind of like on the go lifestyle because Mercury really, really transportation. We're always just like,
Mhm.
so. And we prefer it, right? Like we prefer that busy lifestyle being underneath Mercury lines. And so, for me, like the combination of like Mercury, Venus, like the pleasure principle, right? North node lines being places where we like inherently belong, right? Like I just show up in Miami and I'm like, let's go. Let's go do like a million things and everything's so pretty and everything feels good and everything tastes good. And like I fit in just fine here, and so like I just love Miami.
So I have a
There's a lot of
question.
other things about Florida that are too bad, but like, man,
Yeah, the humidity is a little rough sometimes. I don't know. I love Florida too. I think it's pretty cool. So so you live in Colorado,
yep,
which is quite a bit different than Miami.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
so if you love Miami so much, have you ever thought of moving there? Or you
Yeah. Oh my God, no, yeah. I think about it like all the time.
okay.
Denver is incredibly expensive, but
Yeah,
Miami is like even more so.
sure.
So it is simply a matter of, yeah, like many. I think at some point I probably will end up down there, but I don't know. It's like I say that, but I just also at the same time can like never bring myself to like leave Colorado. I don't know. It's
Colorado is
complicated.
really beautiful too. I mean, Colorado has its own beautiful aspects of it. I mean, I've been to Colorado several times. My grandparents used to have a cabin up in the mountains outside of Boulder when I was growing up, and I
Yeah,
always
you're right.
loved it. But I don't think my husband has been there, and it would be such an easy place to go because it's only from our airport. You easily get direct flights to Denver,
Oh
so
yeah.
I feel like we really need to set up a family trip there because that would be super beautiful and fun. Now, one of the other things that I was looking at on my reading, it said Pluto appears on all four of my angles of my map.
Yeah. All
And
planets will appear on all four angles. That is not unique to Pluto.
oh, see, this is why I need to It says, and then it said, this is rare. I'm like, okay. So
God. Oh yeah, we have all planets on all triangles and
discounted here. Okay. Interesting. I'm like, okay, I got to get on astro.com. So I want to know a little bit about you, like what your business, like what is it that you're up to these days mostly?
I'm continuing to do the astrology thing. At the end of this month, I will have been doing the like full-time astrologer thing for 7 years.
Oh,
So
incredible.
yeah, thank you. So that I just honestly kind of fell into doing the professional astrology thing too, but I actually just finished not that long ago writing a book about astrocartography.
Yes.
So that will come out in January of next year. So
Amazing.
obviously I have a lot of things in the publishing process to go
That's so
through.
cool.
But that will come out with Llewellyn, which will be my second book with them. So lots of fun, yeah.
Congratulations.
And
That's
then
amazing.
I'm also currently apprenticing as a jewelry designer.
Oh, you are? Fun.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
cool.
It's cool.
Yeah, I was looking. I mean, you probably have a lot of different things going on. You know, you have you're a writer, you're doing all the readings. That sounds like such a beautiful way to spend time. Did you always imagine that this would be like the trajectory of your career, or what did like before all of this, what were you up to?
Oh my God. So my educational background is in French linguistics and writing.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I mean, writing is like my oldest passion, and like being a published author was like my first little dream I ever had. So in that sense, like, yes, I'm very glad that that has come to fruition, and writing is definitely something I sort of always imagined myself doing. But for a long time, I thought I would just kind of go the career path of like journalism,
Mhm.
and be a staff writer somewhere, freelance or like whatever, and kind of make a career doing that. And I mean, I kind of do that a little bit, and like I've worked for several publications and things like that, but like as far as being an astrologer, like no way. That was not on my radar even a little bit.
So how did you start working with astrology?
Okay.
I mean, were you like one of those, like witchy young people that was into all of these things just kind of tangentially,
Yes.
or
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. I was sort of very casually into astrology since I was young. And like over the years, you start reading tarot and you start doing all these things and whatever. And like 7 years ago, I was in a place where I was just like, oh, like I need more money. Basically.
yeah,
And I was just kind of like, what's like a side hustle that I could do to make some extra cash, and that doesn't require a lot of capital to start up, because the
sure,
problem is I need more of it, right? And I honestly just kind of like on a whim, I was just like, okay, everybody, like I'm offering like astrology and tarot readings, and like I was offering them for like a stupid low price that I would never
sure.
let anybody offer their readings for at this point. But like seriously, I think I was offering my tarot readings for like $5 and
Oh,
like my astrology readings for 10, LOL. But like that first day that it was literally like a Facebook status that I posted. And that first day at those really cheap prices, I made like $120 or something like that.
oh,
And so
well,
I
you
was
must have
like,
been doing a
oh,
lot of readings. That was quick. That
okay.
was
But I
impressive.
was also like, oh, there's clearly like an interest for this, right? And so it
Mhm.
just kind of became like a more serious thing. And then I got to the point where it was my full, I was making enough money for it to be my full-time income. And I've just sort of never looked
Wow.
back.
What is the like what is the vibe of Denver as far as like a magical community? That's just kind of something that I've been thinking about a lot lately because I know where I live, in the particular town I live in, there just really isn't a, a sense of that. Do you
Mm,
feel like is there a nice magical community? Do you have shops? Like do you read in a
oh
physical
yeah.
location?
Oh my God. Yes, there's definitely a presence here, right? We definitely have plenty of like
Mhm.
witchy,
Mhm.
magical, metaphysical shops around Denver. And, I mean, I would say it's definitely popular enough for us to have like multiple storefronts, like all over the metro
Mhm.
area and stuff. And yes, like I have popped up in physical locations and read at some of the stores, and I get hired to like do events all the time here and stuff. So yeah, there's definitely like a strong interest, I would say, in Denver. And I think also like the other thing is just like astrology in particular has come like more and more into like the zeitgeist, right? And is sort of having like, I don't know if you want to call it like another golden age or something, but like
Oh,
people are like more and more into it all the time. Like I obviously like there's always been an interest in astrology, right? I mean, it's like a centuries old,
very old.
millennia old like practice. But you mean you get all kinds of people now that are like, oh yeah, I know my big three. Right? Like everybody knows their sign, and like a
Yeah.
lot of people know their big three. And like, of course, I get just like, I don't know, I'm gonna call it like regular people, right? That like come and get readings. But I've also like done readings for people who are famous. I've done readings for people who are like lawyers and in the government, and like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it's like it really bridges like a lot of like economic class, socio-political classes and stuff. So it's very interesting, and there's always been the sentiment like, oh, billionaires have astrologers, which like they probably do. But
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, and I think, to that, I know, I mean, I have people in my world that, they tease me about the topics that we talk about here on the podcast, and they tease me about all the, just the way that I live my life and all these things, and I'm just like, well, but what you don't understand is that this stuff is not just some new age thing that just came up, you know, however many years ago. Astrology is ancient. Like, why do
yeah,
people continue to study it if it actually doesn't hold any ground? Like, there is a reason why people still enjoy it. And from my own perspective, it feels like, especially in the past, I don't know, maybe 5 years or since COVID and things like that, it's just really, I feel like everybody talks
absolutely.
about these topics now. And then I'm like, well, why are you talking about and
Hmm.
then making fun of me at the same time? I don't really understand that, but whatever.
Well, they shouldn't make fun of you, first of all. It's so rude.
Oh,
But second of all, like I totally agree with you, right? Like I think I love a skeptic. Okay. I
yeah,
absolutely love a
fun.
skeptic.
Mhm.
um, giving somebody a birth chart reading who's kind of like, I don't know. Because then by then they're like, how did you know that? How did you like you named all these really specific things and like experiences that I'm having, and like I'm like in shock, and I'm like, like,
I
yeah,
bet that's so
that's
fun. I bet
astrology.
that's so I love that. It is fun because it's one thing when you have someone that you're reading for that really understands and really can bring it all in, but when you have someone that's sitting with you and chatting with you and they're just like, "What are you
Mhm.
gonna tell me that," and then you can really open their eyes to it. I think that's really fun because then that helps. Then they're probably gonna go out and tell someone else that's potentially one of their friends, and it helps bring these things to make it not so, I don't know, weird or whatever. I don't know what the right word is, but it's not weird, and I think it's really
I get what
beautiful,
you mean.
honestly.
Yeah. I think like the beautiful thing about astrology is that like it's affecting us whether you're aware of it or not.
Yes.
And like you are we're not going to escape the influence of astrology. And a lot of the skeptics that I come into contact with are men, okay, straight men, but I love to read for them because of exactly what I just
Mm,
said. Like I did a synastry reading for my girlfriend the other day, and whenever people book synastry readings, I never know if it's like just going to be them or if their partner's going to be
what
there
does that
too.
mean for listeners
Oh,
that
it's like
don't know?
compatibility,
Oh,
compatibility reading.
okay.
So yeah, I never know it's gonna be just them or they'll bring their partner. And so my girlfriend, like her boyfriend came to the reading, and I was, explaining things to him and whatever. And at the end of the reading, I was like, do you guys have any questions? And he was like, no. Like he was like, I normally am the person that like has a lot of questions and is very like skeptical about this stuff. He's like, but you like the things that you like called out and like named about like me and my life and my experiences, and like the way that you explained it was just so like easy to understand and like tangible. And he's like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but like, no, I have no questions.
Well, that's cool. And that speaks a lot to you also, because you're able to describe these things and share with your, clients, so that it is understandable. Because I know for myself, it does feel sometimes astrology and the astrocartography, it all kind of feels at times kind of overwhelming, because there's so much information. And then
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
so much stuff. And then I just start kind of going, what does any of this mean? Like, what? Okay. Like, okay, wait, let's break it down to the very basics and let's start from there.
Absolutely. And like that's such a common experience for people to have when it comes to astrology. I've had those experiences myself, when I was learning, and I just felt like I'm overwhelmed and going cross-eyed, and I'm just like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
But astrology is a lifelong study, you know what I mean? And like, I mean, I appreciate you saying what you said, because like one of my pillars of my practice is breaking down these otherwise sort of abstract, heady, spiritual astrological concepts into something that is like tangible, digestible, whatever. So
yeah, I love that. So if, let's say, one of my listeners wanted to have a reading with you, how could they find you?
so I am on like Instagram, Threads only. Basically, like I have a Patreon, I have a Substack, okay, but it's all under the same name. So at Aubrey, the letter C, Houdeshell, which hopefully somewhere
I'll put it all in the show notes. Yes, got it. You want it.
Yeah, so it's all under that. Obviously I have a website, www.graveyardroses.com, which is an
Love
ode
that
to
website name.
and that's just gonna be the easiest way.
Yes. Well, I love it. I appreciate you taking the time with me today. I know it was kind of a train wreck with my children being here. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being patient. Oh my gosh, that was crazy. Now my husband's home and he's wrangling them, and I'm like, "Ooh, that was rough." I was like, sweating so bad. I was like, "No, I've been looking forward to Molly. Just give me a few minutes."
You poor thing. And maybe it was fine. It was totally fine. Like I said, I know how it goes with the kiddos, but I really appreciate you having me on. Like I've had a really good time talking to you.
This is so fun, and I'm just really interested in exploring this more, and I'm definitely going to get on the astro.com, because I am like, what in the world? This is rare. I'm like, what? Now you're telling me that the Pluto and all, you're like, no, that's I'm like, why did it tell me it was rare? Guys, don't go to Astroline, okay? That is the takeaway. No Astroline. That is not where it's at.
Okay. This is my last little thought that I'm gonna inject into this conversation.
Please do.
It really is best to meet with a professional.
I think so.
If that feels inaccessible to you for whatever reason, I understand. Astro.com. Okay, a lot of these like apps that are out there are not correct, as we're learning.
Yes.
And like, please, for the love of God, never ever plug your information into ChatGPT for what your birth chart, your astrocartography, literally nothing. Mostly, well, for me, it's because it uses up our clean drinking water, but for everybody else, it's because it's wrong. All the time, it is wrong. It is not giving you the correct information. And that is true both for the apps and for ChatGPT. So like if you absolutely have to go online and do it yourself, Astrodoc.
We learned the one takeaway. No, there were a lot of takeaways today, but make sure you get the right source, people. Just make sure you get the right source. You don't want to get the wrong information, okay? Because then you could be
like, you don't
building up all this stuff in your mind, and you could be like going all these places, and then you're just like, what? That was totally wrong. And you're like, oh, I felt like the vibe was off. What is this astrocartography? It doesn't make any sense. And it's like, yeah, because you didn't have the right information. Okay.
Yeah, like you don't want to plan a trip and think that you're going somewhere for like a Venus line or a Jupiter line and gonna have a great time, and then you're showing up under like a Saturn or Pluto line instead.
Yes. All right, Aubrey. Well, I will let you go. Thank you so much. I loved our conversation, even though we had a million interruptions the first half.
Thank you so much for having me. I really have
Yes.
enjoyed it.
Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, everyone. So Aubrey was nice enough after after we ended recording, she was very interested to see if the reading that I had from this website or app, Astroline, was actually correct. And so she got on astro.com and plugged in my information, my birthday, time, and location of birth. That's how you do it. That's how you figure out your birth chart. And then she pulled up my map. And yeah, the reading from Astroline was not correct. Very disappointing because now it's like, oh, all that Icelandic stuff that I thought was like ingrained in me. I guess my North Node does go through Iceland, but there's not so much of a connection like I got from that other website. However, the Philippines is still a place. Apparently, she said if I move there, I could probably do really well with my business or my career. However, I said, well, I'm not too sure that I am interested in going back there anytime soon and definitely not moving there. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Aubrey. She's so fun and she was so sweet and so kind to me during the entire chaoticness of the episode. So I appreciate her so much. And you can check her out. I will link all of her stuff, have it all linked in the show notes. You could schedule a reading for yourself, which I would highly recommend. Truth be told, now I feel scammed from my original reading on Astroline, and I need to have a true reading. So, anyway, thank you. Bye. Thank you so much for spending this time at the threshold with me. If you want to go deeper, follow me on Instagram at mystical.mama.ash, where I share daily crystal magic and behind the scenes of this liminal life. You can also find resources, previous episodes, and ways to work with me at bigcrystalenergy.com. We're also on YouTube at Big Crystal Energy Podcast. And if this episode resonated with you, please rate it and review it and share it with a friend that you think would connect with it. It would mean so much to me and helping build this beautiful community of other magical friends and crystal workers. Thank you so much. Until next time, bye.